This is a PoetryBurst video from the English department. Today we'll focus on War Photographer by Caroline Duffy. First, let us read the poem. In his dark room he is finally alone, with spools of suffering set out in ordered rows. The only light is red and softly glows, as though this were a church and he, a priest, preparing to intone a mass. Belfast, Beirut, Phnom Penh, all flesh is grass. He has a job to do. Solutions slop in trays beneath his hands, which did not tremble then, they seem to now. Rural England, home again to ordinary pain which simple weather can dispel, to fields which don't explode beneath the feet of running children in a nightmare heat. Something is happening. A stranger's features faintly start to twist before his eyes, a half-formed ghost. He remembers the cries of this man's wife, how he sought approval without words to do what someone must, and how the blood stained into the foreign dust. 100 agonies in black and white, from which its editor will pick out 5 or 6 for Sunday's supplement. The reader's eyeballs prick with tears between the bath and the pre-lunch beers. From the aeroplane he stares impassively at where he earns his living, and they do not care. This poem is about a war photographer developing photos in a darkroom. His home in England is a contrast to the hell he has seen. As one photo develops, he remembers hearing the cries of a dying man's wife. The final stanza focuses on the English public, who will see the photograph in the Sunday papers. Throughout this poem, the writer explores the true horror of conflict. Conflict is presented as horrific, painful and affecting. Throughout the poem, Duffy explores physical pain, 100 agonies, and emotional pain, the woman's cries for her husband. This is contrasted by the ordinary life back at home. Structurally, the poem is set out in 4 stanzas of equal length, which could symbolise the photographer's methodical care over his work. The use of enjambment echoes the gradual revealing of the photo as it develops. The poem ends with a sense of anger. The photographer is disillusioned by society's lack of interest and care. Duffy explores the idea of detachment. The photographer has to be detached from his emotions in order to do his job, but he's angry at society's detachment towards conflict. Our first quotation is spools of suffering set out in ordered rows. Spools are the things that the film comes on, and ordered in rows would look something like this. We have the sibilant S sound, the noun suffering, and the adjective ordered. The reels of film symbolise rows of soldiers or rows of war graves. The noun suffering is harsh and blunt and emphasises the horror of conflict. The sibilant S sound has connotations of evil and menace. It introduces the narrator's biting, aggressive tone. The adjective ordered has connotations of structure and planning. This juxtaposes with the unpredictable anarchy of the content of the film itself. The phrase is almost paradoxical. Chaos and carnage is impossibly reduced to something ordered and contained. Our second quotation is a half-formed ghost. We have the adjective half-formed and the noun ghost, which combine to form a metaphor. The adjective half-formed has 2 meanings. Literally, the photo is half developed. Metaphorically, it suggests that the body has been mutilated and is no longer in one piece. The noun ghost is symbolic of the fact that the man in the photo is dead, now only preserved in black and white. The image is imprinted on the photograph, but also lingers hauntingly in the photographer's mind. Focusing on one photograph and one family makes the suffering seem more personal. It emphasises the true horror and effects of conflict. Society often focuses on the death toll itself, but fails to examine the real effects. Our next quotation is Sunday's supplement. Sunday supplement refers to the magazine you get inside the Sunday paper. They usually revolve around lifestyle, food or entertainment. They are not exactly considered news. We have the sibilant S sound. We have the plosives D, P and T. We have the noun supplement and a caesura at the end of the quotation in the middle of the line. The combination of the sibilant and plosive sounds makes the reader almost spit out the words. This echoes the frustration and disgust that the photographer feels. His photos are not deemed important enough to feature in the main newspaper. It is symbolic of society's priorities. We are quite happy to bury the horrors of conflict in order to ignore the truth of what is actually happening. The caesura disrupts the enjambment from the previous two lines. This creates a harsh, blunt, exasperated tone, echoing what the photographer has been through compared to how their photographs are being treated. We have the bonus quotation, which is also the last line. They do not care. The pronoun they is ambiguous. It could refer to the editors of the newspapers who choose not to expose the horrors of conflict. It could refer to the readers who choose to ignore it. Or it could be symbolic of our wider society, which is seen as having generally apathetic attitudes towards the suffering of others. Throughout the poem, conflict is presented as horrific, affecting and important. Duffy wants the readers to see it as much more than a picture in a newspaper.